I want to start off by saying good morning to everyone. My name is Leonardo Brown. I am the Richland County Administrator. And I don't know if you can see, but to my immediate right is our County Attorney, Mr. Patrick Wright. I want to just again start off by saying thank you for coming out, hopefully being good conduits of information to individuals and citizens across our county who are curious and wondering about the progress that's being made at Alvin S. Detention Center. And that progress cannot be made with some very key individuals. So I want to certainly say thank you to the men and women who work at Alvin S. Detention Center 24/7, 365, and multiple shifts. And just want to say thank you to those individuals. Want to say thank you also to the family of those individuals who allow our employees and their sons and daughters to work in that environment, and those mothers and fathers and those husbands and wives. I also then want to acknowledge individuals who may have family members who are housed in Alvin S. Detention Center. Want to acknowledge that sometimes having an individual in your family that's detained can be very heart-wrenching, and we recognize that, and we want to make sure that we create an environment that allows those individuals who are detained there to be safe and secure. And so our initiatives, our plan that we submitted, all of our actions are really geared towards that end. And to that, I want to just kind of talk about, just for a few moments this morning before I take questions, and frame this discussion in the mindset of the county strategic plan. For those of you who don't know, the county actually has a strategic plan, and there are 6 overarching goals in that strategic plan. The first one is to foster good governance. The second one is to invest in economic development. The third is to commit to fiscal responsibility. The fourth is to plan for growth through inclusive and equitable infrastructure. The fifth is to achieve a positive public engagement. And the sixth is to establish operational excellence. And as I talk about the plan and the things that we've done at Richland County, I really want to focus in on 3 of those goals that I believe reflect the efforts that are being undertaken at Richland County's Alvin S. Detention Center. So fostering good governance. One of those objectives is to collaborate with other governmental entities. And I think our work with the Department of Corrections is going to reflect our desire to be a collaborative organization in order to tackle a problem that is not only plaguing Richland County, but it is a concern not only in the state of South Carolina, but across the nation when you deal with detention centers. So again, I want to just talk about how the county is taking a strategic focus in how we are addressing these systemic issues. Again, fostering good governance, collaborating with other governmental entities. South Carolina Department of Corrections will certainly qualify as another governmental entity. The goal number 3, to commit to fiscal responsibility. Some of the objectives under that goal include assessing necessary resources, and then to align budget priorities to address those needs. And the county has taken specific action to do that. We're constantly looking at Alvin S. Detention Center through our Detention Ad Hoc Committee and through County Council conversations to look at and assess what is needed at the facility, and then making plans to align our budgetary priorities to address those needs. And I'm speaking this way because it's important to understand that this is a strategic plan that the county is addressing these issues through, so that it's not something that's haphazard, but it is thought out and it's very focused. Goal number 6, establish operational excellence. That includes establishing competitive salaries, encouraging investment in employee and in county development, modernizing technology, addressing employee-related matters, developing metrics of accountability to make sure that we stay the course, creating reporting dashboards, and then addressing current and future resource needs. And all of these things, as you look at the plan that the county will be making available to any of you that are interested in receiving that plan, you will see in there that all of these things are reflected in the actions that we've taken, whether it's creating a plan to make sure that we are paying individuals that work there a competitive wage. You may have heard us talk about how we created a pay plan. We also created a bonus structure for bringing new people on to recruit them and also to retain them. We talked about looking at what additional steps we need to take and doing it on a continual basis. We've been giving report outs in multiple detention ad hoc meetings and county meetings to make sure that we are talking about our accountability and making sure that we are addressing those needs so that we can remain accountable and stay the course. And certainly addressing employee-related matters. We don't like to talk about some of the unfortunate incidents that occur as it relates to people making bad decisions, but when those bad decisions are made, we are also taking action to address that as well. So again, all of these things are focused efforts that we're undertaking to address the concerns at Alvin S. Detention Center. So now I'll just take a few moments to talk about the request from the Department of Corrections to have Richland County submit a plan to address the questions that they raised about Alvin S. Detention Center. I think, firstly, I would like to say that the submission to the Department of Corrections was timely. In addition to it being timely, we were actually able to submit supplemental information to the Department of Corrections. So the Department of Corrections did receive the requested information in a timely fashion before their requested deadline. And part of the reason we were able to do that is because the county was really already making definitive steps towards improving at the detention center. So that report and that plan gave us the opportunity to highlight the efforts that we are making at the detention center and that we will continue to make. So what are the next steps? In speaking with the Department of Corrections, they're going to review the information that we submitted. We went pretty much line by line with their request and addressed the steps that the county is taking to address those requests. So after they review that information, they will respond to us in some manner. They will let us know whether or not we're going on the right track, whether or not there are additional things we might need to address, and what other involvement they might want to have. But really, that will be in the hands of the Department of Corrections, and I don't have a specific timeline from them in which we'll get that feedback from them. The other things that you may be interested in wanting to know is, well, what is contained in the plan and how do I get the plan? So what you would simply do is you would contact our ombudsman's office. All you need to do is do that the way you would normally do, contact the ombudsman's office, and they will provide you with access to that plan. So if you contact them today, you'll be able to receive the plan today. So if you've already previously reached out to them, I would just ask that for the sake of continuity, make a request today. If you're interested in the plan today, they'll provide you access to the plan. You will have all the information that was submitted to the Department of Corrections that can be released. The only thing that cannot be released is information that would compromise the security of the detention facility. But most of the documentation that was submitted to the Department of Corrections is releasable, and there's only one really exception to that, and that's the security upgrades related to the attorney-client visitation space that we're looking to bring on. So with that being said, I'll pause and take any questions that you have at this time.
You talked about the security upgrades. I know you can't really get into detail. I know last time we were here, y'all were talking about the locks on the doors. Can we talk a little bit about that? What kind of upgrades we made on that if we're able to?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I mentioned was that the only thing that was not releasable was the information as it relates to the attorney-client visitation space. The information about the locks, not only is it included in the information that you could get today, but we've actually presented that information in county council meeting. And that information was in the agenda packet. So yes, we can talk about the locks. The locks that we're looking to implement comes from a corporation, Willow. They have a Willow wedge locking system. The details of the locking system are actually included in the packet that you can receive. It is actually currently also available on the county's website under the council agenda information, I believe from a couple meetings ago. And in there you can see the projected timeline related to the locking system being installed. You can see how the locking mechanism is designed to work. You should also feel as a local citizen of Richland County, encouraged that there are other organizations in South Carolina that already have this mechanism and it's proven to be successful. So the Department of Corrections has to review the information and make sure that they feel as though we can implement it at Richland County, but we've already taken steps in terms of purchasing the materials to move forward with that project. And that's a good question, and if you allow me just to elaborate a little bit more, one of the things that's unique about a detention center is, as the administrator, as other Richland County members, we can't just take steps to make changes in the facility without some certain times getting approval from the Department of Corrections. So we have to submit information, they have to review it and determine it does not somehow not comply with minimum standards, and then give us the green light to go. So when we talk about steps that the county has to take and how fast can we get things done, sometimes it's not about the county is moving too slow. Sometimes it's about there's a process that we have to adhere to that requires other individuals to review information before we can actually implement changes that we want to implement. So the locks, that system is, again, completely detailed in the packet, so please feel free to review that. And at that time, if you have additional questions, you are more than welcome to submit those questions.
An inmate died in January. How are we doing with the deaths at the facility? How are we doing making it safer? Is that also included in the package?
So the questions that were addressed in the packet don't talk about, any deaths, and it talks about the overall structures that are related to Alvin S. Detention Center. And while no detention center wants to have any deaths, I don't think that the Department of Corrections would necessarily ask about that in a way that is not controllable by an organization, because sometimes, unfortunately, individuals who have been detained, who have conditions they're just not medically well, they may pass away in the detention center environment, and it may have nothing to do with the operations of the facility itself. So they did not ask any questions specific to deaths. They did talk about how are you remediating any concerns related to the kitchen. We mentioned that we did a kitchen renovation. We've actually showed before and after pictures of that renovation. We did everything from fully clean it, to remove tile flooring, to replace equipment, to add updated signage in there that reflects, how things should operate. And we're getting really close to being able to not only show a before and after, kind of part of it, but the full thing, and then bring you in and let you see the difference between what it looks like before and what it looks like now. In addition to that, we took things a step further. We brought in a temporary kitchen, which was approved by the Department of Health and Environmental Control, while we made these renovations. And in the meantime, we've had multiple reviews by the Department of Health and Environmental Control. In each of those reviews, we have received what will be termed as an A grade. So I think that those acknowledgments reflect, again, the nature of excellence that we're looking to put on at the detention center. So we want an A across the board. We're aware that we're not an A across the board everywhere, but the plan is to get an A, if you will. And how we do that is through this strategic focus, which is reflected in the details of that plan. And again, that's going to be fully accessible to any of you and those who are calling and requesting that information. What other questions can I answer for you this morning?
This might be included in the plan as well, but I know you mentioned having to go through certain steps with review and with the Department of Corrections, but as far as timeline on when salary changes and things like that might be happening, do you have any sort of insight on that?
Yeah, so, and that's a good question, and I don't know how many of you have had an opportunity to really follow this along the way, but we've been raising salaries at the detention center now for several months. And we've talked about this, and maybe you're hearing it for the first time, and it's great for folks who are out there who are looking for an opportunity to understand how to be a part of a solution, career opportunities at Richland County. So Richland County has taken multiple steps as it relates to employee salaries at the detention center. So specifically, early on, we raised the minimum salary, and I guess within probably an area of around maybe 8 months or so, we probably had 3 different raises, because as we were going through the process, we were getting additional information about what was going on during the pandemic and how other areas in law enforcement, as it relates to detention centers, were having this same challenge. So the minimum salary is $40,000, and that assumes that you come in with no basic experience and that you're just coming in on the ground floor. We also have a retention bonus and a signing bonus reflected in there. Additionally, the county is also undergoing a compensation study. So it's not just what we've already done, it's also about what we're continuing to do to address current and future needs. I think it's probably critical to understand that this issue, as it relates to staffing at detention centers, is not a unique one to Richland County. So when you think about competitive salaries in detention center environments, you will find out that across our state, many folks are facing these same challenges, and this is just how we're choosing to try to address it, to get folks in to the detention center and get them to stay there.
Based on the last ad hoc committee meeting, it seems like the number of vacancies is going down, but it's still relatively high. Is there any thought that the county might need to do more than salaries or find other solutions to bring more people in?
So absolutely. So salaries is really only one component of the strategy. So in addition to the upgrades that we talk about on behalf of the detainees, the facility upgrades also reflect our commitment to the environment that we want employees to have in the detention center. In addition to that, we're looking at other ways that, in general, employees receive benefits and how they will use them. So folks at the detention center, for example, you have individuals who have to work extremely long hours and who may be kind of capped because maybe they're exempt employees. We put in initiatives to address that. We put in initiatives to address joining certain groups of resource teams within the detention center. There are other ways that we've addressed that. So certainly you're correct. The numbers are improving, but again, this particular environment is not one where people are excited about working in. And that's why you find this to be an issue across multiple counties throughout Richland County, throughout the state of South Carolina, as well as here in Richland County.
Is there a short list of candidates for the job of jail administrator? And if so, is there a plan to release that short list?
So there is no current short list. We have probably over, I believe, 25 applicants. I will tell you that, and I would certainly encourage you that as you think about the individuals who might want to seek a role as a jail director or jail administrator, that we are supportive of those individuals. And I say that to you because we want folks to want to work in the detention center environment. And if we created an atmosphere where they can come and be successful, then people will be more likely to join on and be a part of that. If we create an environment where folks feel like they cannot do anything that reflects positive growth, positive development, and no matter what they do, they won't be well received, it can hinder the things that we're trying to accomplish. So as voices to the community, I would just encourage you, when you cover information related to the detention center, you consider the folks that we want to work there and stay there and how our words and our actions impact those career development opportunities for them as well as for the organization that's providing a safe and secure environment for detainees.
Do you have an idea of the timeline for hiring a director?
Yes, in the action plan, I actually said within the next 60 days, the goal would be for us to have reviewed applicants, interviewed them, and made a job offer related to the position.
Obviously, changes have been underway since October and before this letter came to the county, but previous inspections have also showed problems with the jail. What was it about this timeframe specifically that made the county undergo such significant improvements?
So your question, I'm not sure exactly how to address it without seeming like I'm trying to sidestep, because the county was already taking significant improvements. I think the reflected information doesn't communicate that, but that's what's been happening. And I think my conversations with the Department of Corrections and their understanding of what we've been doing reflects that the county was already taking significant improvements. They just asked for us to provide them basically a plan that shows the structure in which we're providing those improvements. So the county was already taking significant improvements before we received a letter from the Department of Corrections. And so just give you an opportunity for a few more questions here. So if there's anyone who hasn't asked a question and has one before we wrap up, I want to certainly make sure you have an opportunity to do so. Okay, well then, are there any final questions from anyone who has already asked a question as I wrap up.
With people who have loved ones in these facilities, I guess what can you say to them to ensure that safety and that comfortability of knowing that their loved ones are safe?
Yeah, so what I can talk about is the steps that we've taken and that we are taking, and that's we are trying to create an environment where when individuals behave the way they're supposed to, that in general they're safe. But if there are individuals who don't behave the way they're supposed to, then that there are mechanisms in place to address those. And so that's, I think, part of the conversation that we really don't talk about. We focus really on what steps will the county take to ensure that's the plan that we have lined out here. That also assumes that everybody in the detention center does what they're supposed to do, whether they're detainees or employees. But when people don't do what they're supposed to do, our plan is also to address that. If it's an employee that's inappropriate in their behavior, we're going to have disciplinary action and any further action that's necessary. If it's a detainee, they're kind of already detained, but depending on the issue, there may be additional disciplinary action related to criminal charges or whatever the case may be that reflects that as well. So again, it's really a total process, and I think as I wrap up here, the last thing I'll say is, one of the key questions that we've gotten a couple times is, how do we address mentally ill individuals in the detention center? So we have a contracted provider who provides services for individuals who have mentally ill challenges. But the detention center is not a hospital. The detention center is not a mental health facility. And so when you look across the nation and you've had medical facilities have a hard time hiring doctors and nurses, just imagine now trying to do that for a detention facility. So those are some of the things that I think make the detention center environment unique. And so we're asking everyone to continue to be patient. We're going to stay the course. That's a strategic focus that the county has. We're going to communicate what that course looks like. We're going to share that information. But it's going to take time, and sometimes we want things faster than we can provide. But understand that we will take steps, and we will communicate those steps continuously throughout this process. So again, thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming this morning, and that concludes the conference.